There's been a centuries-long war on masturbation. Why? It's not just religion. Humanity has launched some pretty wild attempts at curbing masturbation. From crazy medical theories, horrific anti-masturbation devices, even governments, from China to Nazi Germany to the United States, they've gotten into the fight, declaring it a threat to national strength. And the war continues to this day.
But are you still master of your domain?
I am king of the county.
Heck, even cornflakes were invented specifically to stop you from masturbating and having sex. True story, which I'll tell you. So why have powerful institutions invested so much effort into policing such a private, universal act, and did any of their concerns make any sense? I'm Ken LaCourte. Here's an elephant in the room that most people won't talk about at the dinner table, but it's an interesting part of our history and our current day. In this video, we'll look at the religious roots of this, the secular crusades and their bizarre solutions, and modern things like semen retention or no-fap, and whether these are legitimate concerns. Let's start where most anti-masturbation passion began, religion. Throughout history, most faiths painted masturbation as a serious moral failing. And while different religions had different reasons, the message was loud and clear: keep your hands above your waist. Christianity offers up one of the most iconic misinterpretations in religious history with the story of Onan from Genesis. Onan was instructed to impregnate his dead brother's widow to continue the family line. Instead, he opted to waste his seed on the ground. Despite it being a story about failing to perform his duty, centuries of theologians twisted it into a blanket condemnation of masturbation, so much so that the term onanism became synonymous with self-pleasure. The Catholic Church took this idea and ran with it. For centuries, masturbation was labeled as a grave moral disorder. And it wasn't just the Catholics. Protestant Puritans in the 17th century, New Haven, Connecticut, they put masturbation on par with blasphemy, technically making it punishable by death. I mean, let that sink in, death. Records don't show any executions, but the law itself speaks volumes about the mindset. Islam's stance comes from the interpretation of verses in the Quran about guarding chastity. Most Islamic scholars interpret this as prohibiting masturbation outright, viewing it as a violation of one's moral purity. That said, some permit it under extreme circumstances, if the alternative is creating greater sins like adultery or fornication. Judaism is similar, particularly in Orthodox circles where the notion of wasting seed is heavily discouraged. It's seen as more than just immoral, but a reckless waste of potential life. Each act is viewed as losing part of one's very essence. Even Eastern traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism, they're generally less dogmatic, but they emphasize celibacy and self-control, especially for monks. It's really a reinforcement of a broader value of self-restraint. But even here, deeply ingrained cultural expectations can lead to significant feelings of guilt and shame. But why have religions been so universally intense about this one act? Part of it is self-control. Masturbation is often thought of as like a gateway sin. The logic goes that if you can't control your private urges, you'll inevitably slip into lust, adultery, or even more severe moral failings. Religious leaders viewed controlling masturbation as crucial to maintaining a disciplined, spiritually upright community. Guilt and shame became powerful weapons here. Fear of divine retribution wasn't enough. Communities built elaborate systems of moral policing, confession, clergy oversight, family pressure to keep individuals accountable. Masturbation wasn't just a personal weakness, it was seen as a collective threat, capable of undermining the moral fabric of society itself. Now, it's hard to say how effective this was. I mean, it might have worked, but it also might have backfired, creating more fascination with the forbidden. I mean, by painting universal behavior as profoundly sinful, religious groups may have heightened its allure. But if religion kicked off the war on masturbation, science and secular society took it to the next level with an extra level of crazy. From terrifying medical warnings to government propaganda, the secular battle against self-pleasure has been one of history's strangest crusades. The hysteria really took off in 1716 with the publication of a pamphlet ominously called Onania. It listed masturbation as the root cause of just about every disease imaginable: blindness, insanity, impotence, memory loss, epilepsy. Masturbation was guilty of all of it. But conveniently, the panel offered a cure: expensive miracle tinctures and powders. And this document spread wide throughout Europe and America. Then came the Swiss doctor Samuel Tissot, who put medical authority behind these claims. Tissot didn't just call masturbation unhealthy. He argued that semen was literally a vital fluid, essential to life itself. Lose too much, and you'll end up weak, blind, insane, or dead, probably bald. Even Enlightenment giants like Kant and Voltaire repeated his warnings, embedding them into Western medical thinking for years. The huge gap between terrifying warnings and the common reality finally undermined them, but before they did, they spurred some pretty evil solutions. Hey, if you're liking this, now's a good time to remember to subscribe, and know that if I make any mistakes in the video, I'll correct them in a pinned post below. Okay, so the Victorian-era inventions are undoubtedly the creepiest chapter in this war. Doctors in the 1800s didn't just lecture parents, they actually built devices designed to punish. The jugum penis was a metal ring lined with sharp spikes. The concept is a boy would wear it at night, and any nighttime erection would be a horrific experience. And actual patients for these torture gadgets existed. They're not just urban legends. But the craziness didn't stop there. Isaac Baker Brown was a respected London surgeon in the 1860s. He gained notoriety by recommending and performing clitorectomies, the surgical removal of the clitoris on girls who were deemed guilty of masturbating or of hysteria. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, the serial guy, he advised performing circumcisions on boys masturbating with no anesthetic. He said that the pain would deter future immoral urges. For girls, Kellogg recommended applying carbolic acid directly to the clitoris. And then there was the bizarre dietary restrictions, and the story of Kellogg's cornflakes is more bizarre than most people realize. I mean, he wasn't just a serial inventor, he was a passionate crusader against masturbation. Convinced that sexual urges were harmful to both physical health and spiritual purity, he believed that the root cause of these urges was stimulating food. His solution? Create the blandest diet imaginable. And that gave us cornflakes, which, if you've wondered why they taste like cardboard, now you know. They were literally designed to make your mornings as unsexy as possible. Sylvester Graham also advocated bland foods as a way to curb sexual desires, and now we have the graham cracker. I'm sure he would have been horrified by the marshmallow and chocolate additions. But over the decades, logic eventually found its way back into the discussion. By the late 19th century, some doctors finally started asking the obvious question: if masturbation really caused madness, wouldn't half the planet be mad by now? The absurdity of the predictions themselves, they collapsed under their own weight. But secular society wasn't finished. Governments throughout the world took this science to heart and did what governments do. Let's take a look at just a couple. Now, it's always fun to start with Nazi Germany because, like so many things, they took paranoia to the extreme. It labeled masturbation as a racial impurity, and it claimed that it weakened the Aryan race. To them, masturbation wasn't just a private moral failing, it was a dire threat to the genetic purity and physical vigor of future generations. The Hitler Youth enforced strict rules against masturbation, and members were instructed to rat out their friends. Punishments ranged from public humiliation to things like extra drills, manual labor, or even a temporary expulsion. Propaganda posters depicted masturbation as a symbol of weakness, a betrayal of racial duty, and a gateway to degeneracy, aiming to instill deep shame and fear. Not to be outdone, Maoist China declared masturbation a symptom of bourgeois decadence, framing it as a moral failing that was incompatible with revolutionary ideals. Communist Party propaganda explicitly targeted personal behaviors they deemed frivolous or self-indulgent, associating masturbation with laziness, selfishness, and ideological weakness. In schools and youth groups similar to the Nazis, young people were encouraged to monitor and report any peers engaging in that decadent behavior. Those accused faced public criticism sessions, mandatory re-education classes, forced label, and sometimes even harsher things. Under Maoist rule, controlling private behavior became an extension of ideological control, reinforcing a conformity designed to root out individualistic desires. And the United States as well. Throughout the early 20th century, America produced sex hygiene films aimed at teenagers, warning that masturbation wasn't just morally questionable, it led to delinquency, criminal behavior, and societal ruin. But while I'm just looking closely at a few countries, this was a worldwide phenomenon. Dozens of countries hopped aboard the anti-masturbation train throughout the 19th and 20th centuries. From Britain to Canada, France to Russia, governments and medical institutions waged campaigns against self-pleasure, complete with moral lectures, medical warnings, and propaganda. But then, as often happens, the pendulum swung the other way. And today, modern movements, they celebrate both masturbation and, of course, avoiding it. In the United States, it started with feminist movements in the 70s, where activists like Betty Dodson openly promoted masturbation as a path to female empowerment. For women, this was revolutionary. After centuries of being told that their sexual pleasure was irrelevant or even imaginary, Dodson and others ran workshops teaching women how to explore their bodies. The sex-positive movement got even more notoriety in 1994 when U.S. Surgeon General Jocelyn Elders made the controversial suggestion that masturbation should be included in sex education classes. She was fired, but her dismissal only sparked greater conversations and led directly to the creation of National Masturbation Month, something I just learned, celebrated in May. By the late 20th and early 21st centuries, mainstream medical authorities and sex educators began promoting masturbation as beneficial, highlighting its stress-relieving qualities and even potential health benefits. A widely cited 2016 Harvard study showed that frequent ejaculation was associated with a 31% reduction in prostate cancer. Suddenly, masturbation wasn't just harmless, it might actually help you live longer.
Huh? Jim?
It's not what it looks like.
But in recent years, there's been another backlash, or at least a recalibration. Online communities, like the no-fap movement, have risen with a surprising scale and intensity. It's mainly young men, and the followers pledge to abstain completely from pornography and masturbation. They argue that excessive exposure to limitless online temptation can lead to addiction, diminished motivation, and even physical problems like ED. You can find thousands of people in online challenges, openly sharing their personal transformations that sound miraculous, increase confidence, improve social skills, heighten motivation. And while mainstream science is skeptical about some of these claims, there's no denying the psychological impact of community support and disciplined abstinence on anything. Some of the modern abstainers borrow their philosophies from ancient Eastern ideas about semen retention. According to these beliefs, semen represents the vital life energy, a chi or prana, and wasting it through frequent ejaculation supposedly drains vitality. Western medicine hasn't really found any substantial evidence backing that up, but believers swear by it, and it creates kind of a clarity and purpose in their lives. As with most things in life, there's something to be said about moderation. We're past the era of spiked rings and bland cereals, but we also recognize the pitfalls of nonstop indulgence. Maybe the real victory in the war against masturbation isn't total abstinence or total freedom, but arriving at a point where we can talk about it openly and rationally. I mean, isn't that what the internet's for? Hey, you made it this far, so you're certainly not afraid of controversial subjects. Here's another one you might be interested in. Why do so many people hate Jews? I mean, it's not about Palestine or anything in our lifetimes, because for centuries, Jews have been uniquely targeted for persecution and hate. Is it something about them? Is it all to do with the killing of Jesus? It's a fascinating story. Hey, I'm Ken LaCourte. Thanks for joining me. If this was worth your time, try it again.